This is the China-Hollywood Greenlight podcast, episode number 15.
And rolling sound. Quiet. Here we go. Ready.
Speeding.
120, take 7. And action.
This is Karen McCann, the host of the China-Hollywood Greenlight podcast, a podcast about creating and distributing content for both Hollywood and China. Any links mentioned in the podcast can be found in the show notes at chinahollywoodgreenlight.com/podcast and look for this episode, which is number 15. If you like the show, please go to iTunes and leave a rating or a review. This will help out other like-minded people to find the show. Now, a quick update on what I'm doing. 4 things. Number 1, I just read 5 minutes ago that my action comedy script, The Kung Fu Rock Chick, made it to the semifinals of the Orb Media Screencraft China Hollywood Screenplay Competition. I'm really glad since I didn't even know I made the quarterfinals. Number 2, I met with a major agency this week. Can't say who they are, but their initials are CAA. I was hoping to attach a Chinese star. His name is Ludi Lin, who speaks fluent Mandarin, Cantonese, and English for 1 or 2 of my scripts. He just wrapped an episode of Black Mirror. He was in Aquaman, or I should say it will be in Aquaman, which was directed by James Wan, which comes out next year. So fingers crossed that he'll A, read the scripts, and B, want to be in the movie. Number 3, I am translating 2 proposals from English to Chinese for the financiers I met at the Hong Kong Film Mart. And those should be done in about a week. And then today, number 4, I'm waiting to hear from an A-list director. So what I'll do is I'll call his producing partner and see what's up. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to start out with a motivational quote to encourage our listeners to continue on their path to achieving their own green light. And today's quote comes from Henry Ford, who said, "The whole secret of a successful life is to find out what is one's destiny to do and then do it." Today's guest is Cristiano Bortone of Bridging the Dragon. Here is the interview. Today's guest is Cristiano Bortone. After attending USC in 1991, Bortone graduated from New York University in film and television with an award for special achievements. In 1998, he founded the Italian production company Orisa Produzioni, and in 2015, the Chinese production company EE Pictures. His activity as producer includes features, documentaries, and television programs, both in the art house and commercial area. Among them, Maria, He Doesn't Like It, in 2009, that topped German box office with more than 1.5 million admissions. Bortone was nominated Best Producer in 2006 at the Italian Silver Ribbon Film Critics Award, and in 2017 at the David D. Donatello Italian Film Award. As director, he directed 5 feature films, among them Red Like the Sky, and then in 2007 won a David D. Donatello and more than 25 other international festivals. His last film, Coffee, 2016, is the first official co-production between Italy and China. It premiered at the special event at Venice Days, was in competition at Beijing Film Festival, nominated for the China Media Awards at the Shanghai International Film Festival, and was recently released in China. Bortone worked as a screenwriter and script editor on several productions, co-authored the manual How to Make a Short, and taught directing, screenwriting, and producing at several international institutions, including the Beijing Film Academy. He has been a consultant of the media program. He is a member of ACE Producers and co-founder and managing director of Sino-European Producers Association, Bridging the Dragon. Well, Cristiano, thank you for coming on the show today.
Very glad to be with you.
I told the audience a little bit about you, but why don't you take a minute and tell us more about yourself personally and your business?
Well, you said basically everything. Nothing much to add. So yeah, I have let's say multi-phase profile because I'm both on the creative side. I'm a film director, writer, etc., and on the production side with my different adventures. But most importantly, I think for this blog, I'm one of the animators and co-founder of Bridging the Dragon, which is nowadays a very important platform connecting European and Chinese film industry. So I think this is probably the most interesting element for today's discussion.
Can you tell us briefly what is the purpose of Bridging the Dragon? What does it do? How do people get involved?
Basically, Bridging the Dragon comes from the awareness that we all have to confront ourselves with this amazing growing market, which is China. Many European colleagues and companies are willing to reach out to China, but as we know, there is still a lot of challenges in this kind of collaboration. China in the beginning looked at Hollywood as the main partner because, of course, in their mind, Hollywood is a winning model, commercial model. But now recently, Europe is becoming more and more interesting for the Chinese market because they are diversifying their investment. They have problem with the American politics a little bit.
Right.
Also, they are pursuing, the diversification, and also interestingly, this Chinese society is growing so fast that they are requiring more and more sophisticated products. So they look at Europe as a great place to reach out to talents, look at beautiful locations, great stories, and hopefully also some soft money. So that we are becoming more interesting. So the platform tries to create a special link and knowledge, especially knowledge between Chinese and European professionals. That's the main goal of the association.
Now that sort of answers my first question, which is why do you want to enter the China market? Now you mentioned Europe is becoming more interesting to China. Obviously, American politics are an issue. The soft money in Europe, and you have created this special link. But you personally, why do you want to get into the China market?
Well, my personal history linked to China is very peculiar because as a young man, when I was back in the 80s, I started studying Chinese in a time where this was considered some kind of an oddity.
Right.
Who speaks Chinese anyway in the world? In 1984 or something. And so I have this personal knowledge somehow. And then one of my movies, Red Like the Sky, that you mentioned, arrived to China in the mid 2000, and it is now a very, very beloved movie for Chinese audience. It has a very high score on Douban, etc., etc. So I started to be called, invited by several institutions. You mentioned the Beijing Film Academy and so on. So I started going to China a few years ago. And, with this personal knowledge, etc., I realized, at the early stage that this market had a lot of potential. And that led eventually to the creation of my own WUFI, which is a whole foreign-owned production company. And so that's the beginning of my link to China, which is a very as it happens in life, in filmmaking, it starts with a very personal interest somehow or connection.
Oh, well, you are definitely the Italian connection.
The Italian connection, that's right. That's right.
Now, I know there's no 2 days are the same in this business, but can you briefly describe 2 or 3 main tasks you do on a, quote, typical day? Either as a producer or Bridging the Dragon.
As you mentioned, that's the problem. That's the problem because I wear many hats. So I'm the I would say I am the most multitasking person because I'm running 3 major headquarters. One of my company in Rome, one in Berlin. I live in Berlin.
Okay.
and one where Bridge the Dragon is based, and the one in Beijing where my other headquarters is based. So I juggle between different time zones and different tasks between production and my more creative work, and more the association. The association became now like a Pandora box. Whenever we approach China is always, that's why it's so exciting, because it's like I always say it's a Pandora box. You open the lid, and then there is a world inside. So through the association now, basically we are in connection with most of our European members. It's a member-based association, so that people ask for membership, but most of these are very interesting European companies and sales agents, and also on the other side the Chinese companies. So we have become a crossroad of people, projects, financiers, and also festivals. We are official partners with the Cannes and Berlin Film Festival. So I mean, in the middle of this this crossroad, which is also very exciting.
You said 3 cities: Beijing. Was it Beijing, Berlin, and what was the other one?
And Rome.
And Rome.
The original company.
Okay, so that's all. Bridging the Dragon is in all 3 of those?
No, Bridge the Dragon is based in Berlin and Beijing, and then my original company is based in Rome.
Oh, okay, gosh.
And my Chinese company also in Beijing.
Wow. Well, let's.
It sounds exciting, but in fact, it's just a lot of headaches.
Because you're constantly
as
communicating.
exciting as it sounds.
So you constantly have to be communicating. Either you're in production on something, or you're developing something, or you're doing something at a festival.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. We just finished our big activity at the Berlin Film Festival at Berlinale. We had a major seminar and our yearly project lab, Sino-European Project Lab, and we coordinated the meetings between Chinese officials and the German film authorities, trying to connect the 2 industries.
Okay.
And then now we are right into Beijing Film Festival next month. So.
Right. Now, that sort of leads into my next question. You mentioned the lab, how you introduce Chinese to Europeans. How do you find your business partners, and how do you suggest the listeners find a Chinese business partner?
One of the intuitions of Bridge the Dragon, which is quite banal, is that movies are made, it's like falling in love, right? You have to find the right people. There is no rule, but what fits with each other, right? So, and this is sounds very simple and very banal, but in fact it is the key of what we try to do. Matchmake the right people with the right people. So what happens most often is that I'm speaking for the European side, of course, you may have a larger audience in the States, but for what concerns Europe, most of the times there is official missions to China. People go on a week tour, they meet some studios, they meet some executives, they meet somebody that they don't know, they exchange business cards, then they come back home and they forget these weird names and they don't know how to follow up. Because what's missing is the spark that ignites the fire, and the spark is the personal knowledge and the personal connection. So basically what we really try to do is to get people close to each other through, for example, residential events like our yearly lab, where we put people for 4 days, we put them in a beautiful hotel somewhere nice, and these great selected people, like a soccer team, they are forced to be together for some time, and get to know each other, drink a beer, smoke a cigar, exchange content, but mostly build personal bonding relationships. And then that is what is important in order to follow up, to find the right partners, like to find the right loved ones somehow.
Right. Good analogy. So you obviously you're the Italian connection. You have a great reputation. You've also got Bridging the Dragon. You've got this yearly lab. And you're also going to these film markets to meet with Chinese partners. And so the next one you're going to is Beijing?
The next one is in Beijing, where we're going to launch. We usually do every year big matchmaking party, Sino-European matchmaking party, where we gather, we bring all our connections or whatever. We select them and we try to put them together in one evening. And we will launch this year a new initiative, which is called Bridging the Dragon Professional Talents, which will be some kind of like an agency somehow under the umbrella of the association, which will promote a lineup of outstanding European below-the-line talents for the Chinese market. So that's and then next appointment will be in Beijing, where together with the market, with the CNC, we organize every year a panel discussion. This year it will be about distributing Western films in China and vice versa. So the challenges and what's changing in the landscape of distribution to and from China. And then we do a company meeting afternoon event. So we select 30 international companies and 30 Chinese companies, and we make them in one afternoon.
That's at the Beijing Film Festival?
No, at the Cannes Film Festival.
Oh, at the Cannes. Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, got it. Okay, well, you've done a lot of films. You've got these great companies, this great platform. Tell us about an obstacle you encountered on a past project, and how did you overcome it, and what did you learn?
I hear a strange noise in the background. Do you hear that? No, now it's finished. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, making films in China is very challenging still, and the language is not the main challenge, as people may think. Okay. The main challenge is the different procedures, the different way of working, and the cultural difference, the profound cultural difference. And also, I have to say, the fact that a lot of Chinese professionals are very professionally very young and not so experienced. They may have a lot of financial resources, but they are very young in terms of the their insight into the process of making movies. So this, I would say, is the number one challenge, to deal with colleagues that, they feel confident because they have many resources, but at the end of the day, they are not so knowledgeable because it's just a short time, We people like, for example, myself, I started making movies in the 90s, so it's more than 25 years that I've done that. And I've gone through changes, through different problems and challenges and whatever. People, obviously, this has an impact on the overall understanding of what making a film is about, more than somebody that started professionally 5 years ago. That's a little bit the difficulty. And then, of course, the second challenge is somehow, what everybody is concerned about, which is censorship and the approach to content and sensitive issues, sensitive elements in our content, which requires, from my personal experience, a lot of patience and determination. I always make a joke. I always say that working with China is like a drinking competition, So you're sitting in front of your you have to decide who shall be the first one that crashes and stands up from the table and says, that's enough, I drank too much. You don't want to be the first one. You want to be there until the end.
All right.
You want to let the other counterpart die first.
Okay.
So it requires a lot of patience.
A past obstacle you mentioned, two of them, but the one, for example, maybe the Chinese you mentioned are kind of young at perhaps production services or film production. How did you solve that one problem where?
It's just unsolvable. Making movies is always a challenge, no matter what. I mean, it's not that making movies in Italy or in America or in Africa is less challenging. So it's just the question of how flexible you are.
Right.
And it is interesting because as an Italian, we Italians are known to be very flexible because our life, our history made us our capacity of endurance is very high because we used to adjust and reinvent solutions all the time. So maybe that's part of the game. But yeah, I mean, we have to be very, very flexible and sometimes a little bit modest, because it is true that we may have more experience, but it is also true that we just have our way of doing things, and sometimes our way of doing things may not be the way of doing things. Maybe there is somebody else who has another way. So if we want to work with that other, we have to learn how to adjust ourselves on both sides. It's a dialogue. It's a bridging the dragon.
Oh, very excellent name for your platform. Now, you did mention two current problems. The Chinese companies with perhaps a lack of producing experience, and obviously the censorship problems. Are those two problems, if you could magically solve them, would those be it, or would they be something different?
We mentioned the first two, but there might be a few other challenges. One of them is how to get through the star system in China. Of course, because to make movies in China, you do need stars. Stars are extremely expensive and mostly extremely hard to get because there's not enough. Too many movies, too high demand, and not enough stars. So that's one major challenge for us, which has a solution though. If the movie has an international appeal, it will be easier to get Chinese stars. Chinese stars, they want to get abroad. So that's something which is worth always remembering. Another challenge is definitely the financial challenge, how to trust your partners, how to find partners that are reliable, how to get the money out of China, how to get the revenues out of China. This is a whole area where the best advice I would say is that we always have to work with B. In China, you always want to work with A, but also B, C, D, until the Z plan. Because you can never be guaranteed that the A plan will go through. No matter how many contracts you have, how many lawyers you have, it just might happen that you don't get what you are expecting to get, at any point. So you need absolutely to always have safety nets and B, C, D plans. So if things get rough, you know immediately how to switch to another channel, and then readjust the synchronization, the sound, whatever. And then other challenges, of course, as usual, are the creative elements, and that falls into maybe in some of the categories that we said. So the discussion about scripts, that's very complicated, because you're dealing with people, producers and partners that sometimes don't know themselves what is a good script. They think this script sucks, but in fact maybe it's great, or maybe the other way around, just because they don't read. I mean, reading scripts is a very special skill. Not everybody knows what translates into great movies. So yeah, probably if Steven Spielberg reads a script, it's different than his appreciation is probably very different than some Chinese investor that last year was into the shoe business, and now investing $100 million into movies. So this is a major challenge. There is no solution to that, just a lot of patience.
Well, that's a good answer. Speaking of scripts, what sort of future projects are you looking for? Film, TV, genre, budget range, and what do you think the Chinese studios are looking for?
First of all, I would like to say to our audience, which is probably Western audience, that one of the most heard sentence that is said in China to foreigners is, "You don't understand Chinese audience." This is a fascinating sentence that we keep on hearing always, constantly. You don't understand Chinese audience. But the very problem is that nobody understands Chinese audience, not even the Chinese, So I always make a joke, for example, like when I started going to China a few years ago, I wanted to make a romantic comedy, a Chinese romantic comedy set in Rome. And then at the time, I was told, you don't understand Chinese audience. Now it's the male that decides, not the women. So is there some kung fu in your movie? I'm like, no, it's a romantic comedy. Romeo and Juliet, Italy, romance. No, you need kung fu. You don't understand Chinese audience. Then after 2 years, there was the boom of romantic comedy in China. So everybody, you would go with this kung fu action film, and people would tell you, no, 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 no. Do you have a romantic comedy
Oh
for
my
me?
gosh.
After 2 years, and then it was the time of fantasy movie after Monster Hunt, and everybody was into fantasy, and then sci-fi. Then this year we had the big
Wolf Warrior.
Wolf Warrior. Everybody was into action propaganda movies, and then Feng Xiaogang, big Fanhua youth came,
Right.
and everybody was, oh my God, we have to make epic dramas because the public wants epic. And then the Revenge of the X-File, the X arrived. It was a huge success. And then now everybody's like, now it's time for romantic movies again.
Right, of
which
course.
means basically Chinese, they don't get the point that in a sane and developed film market, there is space for every kind of movie because everyone will always want to fall in love, and everybody wants to take their kids to the movies. Every man wants to see some shooting. So there is space for everybody as long as the movies are good. So when a movie flops, sometimes it's not because romantic comedies in China is over, but just because their films suck. So, and that's easy. The audience is becoming more demanding. They need to make better movies.
Of course. And of course,
So
go ahead.
Sorry. No, so to answer your question, so I'm trying now with my colleagues and I try to push people to develop every kind of movie as long as they're good. So in my slate now I have a romantic comedy, which we will shoot most likely this summer, set in Italy, finally.
Of course. Good.
A Chinese romance set in the most beautiful city of the world, Rome. Then we are developing a high concept family film from a big international IP character. And then we are developing a very moving drama by a very famous Chinese writer, novelist. So very different films, but trying to always package the movie to make a good movie, whatever genre that is.
Right. Now, have the Chinese? I know the Chinese studios. Maybe they're following the market, which is going to be 2 years too late.
Exactly. What I always say, they love statistics. They want to find a formula for success. And I say, what is I always make a joke. What is the formula for love? There is no formula for love. Love happens in the most unexpected way. And as a matter of fact, I would suggest you, when you make the statistics of what works on the market, I would suggest you one thing. Read the statistics. Do another kind of movie. You know why?
Right.
Because when you read the statistics, it means that the audience will, by the time you make your movie, will already will be grown, already tired of this genre.
Right.
And you need going to the movies is wanting to watch something new which hasn't been seen before. That's the secret.
Exactly. Now, has the Chinese studios? Maybe somebody out there wrote the script already. Have they said anything to you this year where they said, hey, give us a script with a sci-fi or action or anything like that?
It's very hard. This is another challenge I forgot. The challenge of explaining to Chinese executives that they have to have a little more creativity. I spoke today with a friend. This is fascinating. I spoke today with a friend. I was like, I haven't heard from you. Where have you been? I was in Mumbai. I'm like, Mumbai? Why did you go to Mumbai? Oh, Chris, you don't know. We are trying to develop now a film with India. Now it's the time for India. Just because, last year there was Dangal.
Right.
So now every Chinese is going to India and trying to make another Indian Chinese movie. So next year there will be probably 300 Indian Chinese movies.
You have to be ahead of the market.
Of course. I said, great, go to Mumbai on vacation, but don't do the film in Mumbai. Maybe you want to do the film, I don't know, in South America, in Brazil, with samba, something different.
Or Rome. All roads lead to Rome.
Or Rome, yes.
Now, this next question is a little tricky. What question did I not ask you that I should have?
There's so many questions. I don't know. One question that you didn't ask me because everybody's concern is what's the best way to get money out of China? Because that's especially the American friends are very interested in this topic. How do we get money out of China?
And what's the answer?
The answer is there is three answers. Number one, If you think the Chinese are stupid and they're just very rich and wealthy people, and you can get a lot of money out of them by fooling them around, you're wrong. Chinese people, they have 5,000 years of history as businessmen. They're very, very clever. Whatever they do, there has to be some kind of interest behind it. It is very complicated to fool them, which means if you have a great movie and they can get benefits from that, great. But if you're trying to sell something cheesy that you cannot sell in the States, then you're going to have a hard time, especially now that they learned the lesson. The Chinese, they invested in the beginning a lot of money in America. By the way, when we think that they lost the money, we don't know, because also there are other reasons why there was a lot of money coming out of China. Maybe some investments, maybe some disguised money, whatever. That's also why it stopped. Right. So now they're more and more cautious. So it's all about making them happy, making them rewarded. And this is something tricky. The second answer is try to strike. That is another answer that I tell everybody, especially in Europe now. If you think that they're going to invest money in your European art house movie, in your movie, in the dream of your life, you're wrong. They will invest money into something that makes money in China. And to tell you the truth, instead of desperately looking for Chinese money to invest into your movie, I think now time is coming that you need to invest your money into Chinese movies. So we want to get a piece of the market where the market is, which is China. That's the secret. Right. So we need to make co-production treaties, co-production deals, co-financing deals, where we become more courageous and we go and try to set up business in China. And although it's difficult, try to get a piece of that box office, because that's where the market is. Very big numbers. That's what. Now, some people did it. Some American studio did it, and they are very frustrated sometimes. But sometimes independent producers, they can do it better if they have patience. Why? Because they're just smaller and they have more patience and more endurance. So it's a big opportunity. Now, whether then the revenues come out of China, that's a different issue, which still needs to be partly explored. Right. But I'm very optimistic. China is becoming not so much anymore the land of copycat, the land of copyright infringement. They are very fearful of lawsuits. It's becoming a little bit like America, because of course the amount of money has increased incredibly. Right. So now, we can start being a little more confident and trying to be pioneering in this journey, which is making good movies for the Chinese market.
Well, thank you for answering that and giving us that question. How do you get the money out of China? That's good. Very good. Now, the last question is, what advice can you give those aspiring to tap into the Chinese market?
Well, I think we already said a few things.
We said many things. Just to wrap it up.
Something that we didn't say, maybe. I mean, we said be patient, be courageous, be enduring. And one thing... we said don't stand up from the drinking competition too soon. But one thing also I need to say, and this is, I always say to the Europeans, we can say the same thing to the Americans. You need to be a nerd. Work with China. Meaning a nerd. You have to study hard. Right. It is not believable and possible that somebody goes one day and reads an article, goes 1 week to the Beijing Film Festival and pretends to be able to set up a co-production, a film with China. This is not going to happen. Right. You need to study. You need to study hard. You need to read every day. You need to get acquainted and profoundly knowledgeable of content. People, procedures, and mostly content. And also, very hard for a European or maybe an American writer to come up with a story that works in China. This is very naive, Right. I put some red lanterns, some kung fu, and then, I think this sounds Chinese. They would like it. That's not going to work, No. It is as if a Chinese wants to make an Italian movie. It's just going to sound ridiculous. Right. So we have to be a little more modest.
Good point. Good point. Now, in conclusion, would you like to share any social media details or website links? Or how can the
well, we can
audience,
say
find you?
Well, we can go www.bridgingthedragon.com. That's the association. And, well, my personal company, if that is interesting, I don't know, it's www.orisa.it, of course.
Of course, of course. Well, Cristiano, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I've learned a lot, and this was really fun.
Great. And I hope this can be beneficial, and I hope your blog grows. And mostly, I hope there is more and more connection between us interested in China, because the key is creating a net.
Exactly. Great. Thank you, Cristiano, and we'll see you at the premiere.
Thank you.
Today's 3 key points are as follows. The first one, how to get money out of China. You have to ask, as Cristiano alluded to, ask what's in it for the Chinese. Cristiano said the Chinese have been doing business deals for over 5,000 years, and they are very clever. They need a reward for their investment. So you've got to ask yourself, what's in it for them? B, your project must make money in China. Don't think your European art house movie will be a big sell in China. Chinese investors want to make money in their home market. C, consider investing in Chinese films. To get a piece of the China market, consider investing in a Chinese film. But as Cristiano did say, getting revenue out of China is a different matter. So you also have to find trustworthy partners. Number 2, the second key point is language isn't the biggest challenge. Cristiano mentioned that a bigger challenge to the language barrier is dealing with Chinese producers who have financing, but perhaps not a lot of experience. So what do? This leads to key point number 3, the financial challenge and trusting partners. Besides dealing with Chinese producers who perhaps 6 months ago were manufacturing shoes and not making films, how do you deal with this? As Cristiano said, you need an A plan, but also a B, C, D until Z plan as a backup. Things could and probably will go wrong, and you need to be prepared ahead of time. Now, for takeaways, I have 4. First, don't buy the phrase, you don't understand the Chinese audience, because nobody does. As Cristiano said, many Chinese producers rely on statistics when it comes to picking scripts to produce. If Dangal was a huge hit, then hey, let's go make an Indian-Chinese co-production this year. Actually, this is very short-sighted, since it could take 2 years to get your film into theaters. And by that time, the audience's tastes have changed. Better to look at the statistics and buck the trend. Counter-programming. Be different from the pack. Number 2, there is room for every kind of movie. Following on this thought, you can't copy last month's successful film. Any film can be successful no matter what genre, if it's good. Cristiano joked that this is why Chinese films, quote, suck. They chase the market and copy current trends. That doesn't work. Any genre, not just what was hot last month, can do well if it's good. 3, network. The association Bridging the Dragon now has a new branch called Bridging the Dragon Professional Talents, where it hopes to pair talented, below-the-line European professionals with the Chinese market. Now, maybe you can do the same on a smaller scale. Why not a China-Hollywood mastermind group? If you're interested, let's start one. Contact me on my Facebook page, www.facebook.com/CH Greenlight, and let's see if we can create something. The fourth takeaway, how to attract a Chinese star. As Cristiano said, Chinese stars are extremely busy and very expensive. So how do you compete? Well, your project must have some international appeal. Otherwise, you're competing with major Chinese studios who have more funding than you. But many, dare I say most, Chinese films don't cross over. You can attract a Chinese star by offering them something most Chinese studios can't, a global audience. That's the show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Please help grow the audience by leaving a review on iTunes. This will really help spread the word. And I'll see you at the premiere. Bye. 一会儿见.